Tom Fennelly, great to have you on today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Very well. Well, look, for the benefit of the audience, it would be great if you could give a little background on yourself, your work, what you do, and then we can go through the rest of the interview.
Fantastic. So my name is Thomas Fennelly. I've been in HubSpot for 8 years, working the enterprise segment. So essentially, I would run a sales process towards the Benelux region, carrying out sales processes that could be 6 to 12 months long, typically.
That HubSpot orange behind you totally gives it away, but it's all good. So look, a big part of what we're talking about with people like yourself is the big rush of Q4, the literal rush and the physical rush, the psychological rush. I'd love to start for you to give your thoughts on like, what does Q4 mean to you? And it doesn't mean if it's fiscal year, the Q4 for sales in general. What does it mean to you?
Yeah, so not in a negative sense, but a positive sense. It's very much last chance. Okay, so everything you've worked towards throughout the year has to happen over these 3 months. So there's definitely an element of excitement, anticipation, nervousness. It's really what sales is sort of all about as well.
And when does it kick in, that sense of, if we think about a calendar year, is it October or is it before that?
It would be before that. So it actually goes far as saying the beginning of September, because you've got September and October to really close out your sales process. And then you want to really be negotiating in November. You don't want to be leaving things slip into December, obviously with holidays. That obviously doesn't always happen. We're always negotiating deals still up to the very end of December sometimes, but ideally you want that to be closed off before then.
Does the dynamic change between you and your buyer and your champion? Is there a greater sense of urgency? How does that dynamic evolve?
At the beginning of any sales process I have, unless the sales process is started post September, for example, the expectation would always be set, and you try and have alignment with the buyer too, that we're looking for a close within the calendar year. So provided that expectation is set early, then you're working towards that goal from the beginning to the end. So it's not something new that you're springing in Q4 all of a sudden. So making sure that expectation setting is done is a huge help, so that the way you sell doesn't change too much when it comes to Q4 too. And then, of course, making sure that you're logging milestones along the way as well. So using things like a digital sales room, for example, probably talk about it a bit today too, but I often like to start the business case towards the beginning of a sales process, and then, of course, adjust it further towards the end as well.
How do you present that business case at the beginning? What is the expectation to your prospect?
So if you've identified your champions are critical towards the business case, because they need to see it as collaborative. Okay, so this isn't something that I'm creating myself without their input. It's really both of us working together to build something to prove to their own C-suite why this would have a really positive impact for the business. So that's how I position it essentially. It's trying to help them internally look good. And then it goes back to, okay, what is in this for the business, but what's in this for you, Mr. and Mrs. Champion, as well, because there needs to be some real, I guess, need or want to buy HubSpot in this case, and how that's going to impact their life too. So that's obviously part of the business case piece also.
And I think also that's something that a lot of more junior reps may not be conscious of or aware of in the beginning. And somebody like you who has, you're obviously an elite sales professional, you've got a lot of experience. A lot of it is really managing the expectation, managing the process with and for your prospect. They may have never bought your category before, right? Yeah. They may be new to this. So they may not ask for it, but certainly they need that guidance, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there's the other thing that you alluded to is there's not just the business need, but also surely there's a career need for the champion. Of course, if you're making them look good, or if you're supporting them, because ultimately they're going to be making a case to their C-suite, enabling them to be proud of the work that they're doing and to look good is clearly something very important, right?
When we think of outcomes in our own evaluation process, we typically think of three different parts to that. So there's the the business outcomes, there's the process outcomes, and then there's the identity outcomes, which is what we're talking about there. It's
Brilliant.
what does this mean to you specifically if this happens? What career change do you foresee in the next year or two if you're able to deliver these types of results? What promotion are you looking for? That type
That's
of thing.
brilliant. That's brilliant. It makes all the sense, right? Like we're all helping each other out, so to speak, and it's beneficial. The other thing is we always say, again, one of those things that often people forget is there's really two sales in every process. There's a sale that we see, so us to our champion, and the sale that we don't see, which is our champion to their economic buyers. And having influence in that and supporting that is so crucial, right?
Absolutely, and we see more of that today than we ever have, and it's just the way companies are structured. So once you're sure that your champion is on your side and wants this to happen, it's really about armoring them with the collateral and the preparation they need to deliver, for example, a business case in this instance that's going to get that approval to move forward. So again, that's why that business case is worked on from a very early stage. And if you don't have that in place, you're taking a massive risk. I've seen reps spend up to 12 months on deals or 24 months on a deal to then have it not happen because of a meeting that took place internally where they had no control over because their champions weren't equipped. I can't stress enough how important this is.
Yeah, and I fully agree with you, of course. So going back to the whole concept of the Q4 rush, I've done a lot of sales in my life with my businesses and stuff, and I've certainly felt it myself because you've got the hitting your target pressure, you've got all sorts of different levels of pressure. What are some of the craziest things that you've seen or even had to do to get a deal over the line in Q4?
A few, and so yes, yeah. So there was one case I was working on for over 12 months actually, and we'd gone over and visited the client many times on location as well. And towards the end of Q3, there was a feeling that it wasn't going to happen in Q4. We weren't going to meet that deadline, and the stakeholders that I needed on side to try and close this case as well, they were getting further and further away. So what I thought of doing was rather than sending that other email or trying to call them again or reaching out on LinkedIn, I tried to take a different approach. I actually wrote them a card. I sent them a physical card wishing them happy holidays with the upcoming season, and I also acknowledged, that it's been great working with them these past few months. It's a shame we couldn't come to a solution in Q4, but looking forward to the conversations the following year. The impact that had was the CMO in this instance really appreciated the card, the physical card with the HubSpot swag coming with it too, that they got back in touch. The conversation started again, and their objective was to try and help me navigate what needed to be done to get to where we wanted to get to, bring them on as a new customer as well. So taking a slightly different approach, sending that physical card with some HubSpot swag, not being someone too pushy, had the positive impact.
It's remarkable how something just a little bit different can have a real meaningful impact. Were you able to close it that quarter?
We were, yeah. Now it took us up to the very last week of December, but no, we got there in the end, which was great.
And what was it that was holding up? I mean, it's yeah, if you can share.
Yeah, so in terms of the urgency around the implementation, their own dev team were saying they did not want to spend the required time on the implementation at the beginning of the year. And they had other projects that they wanted to prioritize. And what we were looking to get across was what they envisaged would be necessary in terms of hours spent was nothing compared to what was actually necessary.
Right.
And there was far less of a time investment involved. So it was very much their own internal dev team prioritizing their time, looking after that time, which I'm sure we've all been there. And getting them on side was the crux to winning it.
I'm going to take that as a note for next time somebody's either ghosting or taking a long time to answer. Maybe that different route of a physical card along with some swag it can never disappoint, right? People are always pleased to receive a gift.
Absolutely.
What is your philosophy on discounting in Q4 to bring something, to bring it forward?
So one of the biggest mistakes a lot of reps make is they look at the price of their software and they feel themselves for whatever reason that their software isn't worth that price. So if you're going into a negotiation feeling that whatever product you're selling isn't worth the price that it's at on your pricing page, you're already losing. So you really need to believe that piece first of all before starting a negotiation. Then from there, if you are being asked about discounts and terms, there has to always be that give get, as we know. Okay. So first of all, why do you need this discount? You need a reason. It needs to be a compelling one. And then we need an actual number. Okay. So if you need this discount, what do you need the discount to and for what reason? So why do you have this budget? Where does this budget come from? Without getting this information, I would not start any type of negotiation. If I have this type of information and there is a compelling reason, I've got acknowledgement of their budget, when can they actually sign a contract? Okay, so often we rush straight into sending a contract without even acknowledging, do they have a procurement process? Okay, have we crossed out all the T's and I's or I's and T's, you know what I mean, and the legal requirements? If you don't have that done, then don't start your negotiation yet because you're going to be punished at the very end of your process. So, provided you've passed procurement, legal, and you've got numbers, you've got commitment to sign by a certain date, that's when negotiation can really start, and that's when a proposal could be made. Typically, if I am making a proposal or a counter offer, I won't go past two offers. So there'll be the initial one, there'll be the follow-up if needed. I won't go past that.
Makes sense. Yeah, because you've got to hold firm, right? A lot of the time, I've been a software buyer as well, right? And you always know that you can probably squeeze a little bit more discount at the end of the year because everybody wants to hit their numbers. But there needs to be a fair exchange of value and a mutual respect, right?
Well, you're losing credibility. You're losing trust as well. The second you've thrown out three or more offers, you've lost all credibility at that stage. So you need to be really careful about the offer you're making and for what reason. If you have information such as they can sign by this date, the right person is involved in terms of their CFO, if that's the person that needs to sign this, and you've got a realistic idea of the budget that they can actually put towards the contract, then you shouldn't need to make more than two offers.
Yeah, agreed. And then just a couple of last questions, because this whole period really fascinates me around the psychology of it. What have you seen can be some of the biggest blockers in Q4 to getting that deal over the line? Which are real and which are preventable?
So the obvious one is holidays. Again, it goes back to that expectation setting piece. If you and your buyer are aligned that the shared goal is to close a contract by the end of Q4 for whatever reason that might be. And again, it can't just be your reason. It can't be because you want to bring on the new business in Q4. They need to have an incentive for that as well. Then from there, it's okay, well, how can we avoid any issues in that? And how can we understand that holidays are the biggest barrier typically? When are people taking holidays? Who's important that needs to be part of discussions over the coming weeks to get to our goal? If you don't know when your key stakeholders are taking holidays and it happens out of nowhere and you can't get through to them December, it's your fault. It's your fault that you haven't asked those questions, and it's not a valid excuse. So to keep it simple, holidays is probably the biggest challenge. But again, you should be well aware of what those dates are that holidays are being taken.
Have you ever closed a deal on the 31st of December?
I closed the deal on the 1st of January. To explain what that means, I was in Australia. So with time difference, I had a deal. I was working at midday in Australia, and it was, I think, maybe 11 p.m. in the Netherlands, and 11 p.m. on the 31st of December. And we were able to close it. So it was the 31st of December, 1st of January for me, but it was pretty special.
Must have been a great big celebration for sure.
Yeah, no, it was definitely.
Amazing, Tom. Thank you very much. Really enjoyed the session.